Hey Descendants, Bob here. Today I'm gonna make a tier list for the Descendants that we had available for the first Descendant, for the final test. Keep in mind, this is gonna be purely subjective, so if you agree or disagree, try to keep it civil. And if your tier list is different, go ahead and put it in the comment section below. I wanna see your opinions. So let's get started. Okay, for the first Descendant we have Sharon. In my opinion, Sharon kinda doesn't really have a personality. Her toolkit is pretty weird in my opinion. Doesn't really make sense. She has a cutoff beam, which is a kind of like a lasso that she throws at her enemies. She has an active camouflage. She has a shock nuts, and she has a flash short sword. And it doesn't really make sense that she has a long range ability, and then she has a camo for escapes or to get closer to enemies. She has a shock nuts for closer enemies, and she has a long range ability. So she's kind of like all over the place. And honestly, the only ability that I found that was useful from Sharon was a flash short sword. The other ones didn't see a lot of use, honestly. Like, when are you gonna really use the active camouflage? I don't see myself ever using this ability. I mean, it's cool that she has active camouflage, but in a PvE game, when are you gonna use the active camouflage? It doesn't really make sense. Unless there's gonna be like encounters where there's gonna be really strong enemies and you're gonna try to be poking them little by little, or something like that, right? But for the final test, didn't really find a use for her, so I'm gonna put Sharon in the D tier. Okay, everyone, next up we have Lepic. Lepic, in my opinion, is pretty strong. He has a very good toolkit and everything makes sense. He has a grenade throw, which is a medium to long range ability. He has overclock, which empowers his other abilities. He has a traction grenade, which is a medium range ability. And he has overkill, which is a medium to long range ability. Grenade throw, pretty straightforward. It's just a grenade. Overclock empowers the other abilities. Traction grenade, it's a disable for the enemies. It makes them float in the air. And overkill are mini supernovas, which you can shoot 5, I believe. And they're pretty good. The main reason why Lepic is pretty strong in my opinion is because all his abilities are medium to long range and they all make sense, they're all intertwined with each other. And his disable is pretty good in my opinion. You just throw it and the guys in front of you are just gonna be floating in the air and they can't do anything about it. So you just shoot them off and they're dead, right? Overkill, pretty strong too for ad clear. You just pretty much doing a lot of AoE damage. Grenade throw, AoE damage, and overclock empowers abilities. I feel like Lepic is the character that everybody needs to grab on day 1 instead of Viessa or Ajax if you want to do DPS. So for me, for that reason, Lepic is gonna be on the A tier. Okay, everyone, next up we have Bunny, the fan favorite. Bunny, she's pretty fun, she's pretty strong as well in the early game. I still don't know how strong she's gonna be on the late game. But she has a very cool toolkit. She has a thrill bomb, she has speed of light, she has lightning emissions, and she has maximum power. Speed of light and lightning emissions, they're pretty much the same ability in my opinion. You gotta use the two in the same instance always. Lightning emission is gonna pulse faster the faster that you go, and speed of light just makes you extremely fast. Bad thing about speed of light is that it's gonna be consuming your MP, but as you're killing enemies you can just be grabbing MP and you're gonna be fine. She doesn't have a MP problem in my opinion, and for the early game she's just pretty much erasing everything, right? She's just killing everything before you even see it, and I feel like she's gonna be a very good character for leveling up. So for that reason I'm gonna put Bunny on the S tier. Okay, next up we have Freyna. Freyna is one of the all-in DPS that we have on the first Descendant. Most of her abilities are just damage. You're trying to do as much damage as possible. You have Venom Trauma, which is like a poison needle. You have the defense mechanism, which is a shield. And if they hit you, you're gonna poison them. You have Putrid Venom, which is an AoE poison attack. And Venom Baptism, which is a poison gun. So pretty much all her abilities are gonna do damage to the enemies in some way. The only bad thing about Freyna is that she doesn't have an escape besides the grappling hook. All the other characters, they have some sort of escape. Viessa, for example, she has a frost road. Bunny, she has a speed of light. Lepic, he has a traction grenade. Sharon, she has a active camouflage. So Freyna, she's either all in or she's dead, right? She doesn't have an escape. So for that reason, I'm gonna put Freyna on the high A tier. Next up, we have Viessa. Viessa, in my opinion, is one of the worst characters. She's not bad, but she could use some improvement. Her abilities, in her case, don't really make sense to me. She has a Frost Shards, which is like a Frost Needle that she shoots. Frost Road, which is gonna make her faster and she's gonna shackle the enemies that touch it. Cold Snap, which is an instant shackle to the enemies in front of her. And Blizzard, which is an AoE attack. So I don't really see myself using ever Frost Road. Rushing towards the enemies with just to shackle them feels like it's a very dangerous thing to do with Viessa. I mean, she has a Cold Snap, which is a shackle, and she has a Blizzard, which is an AoE attack that she can use in front of her. But after you use a Frost Road and you already shackle your enemies, what are you gonna do? Like, you're there in front of them, and if you can't kill them, you're dead. So she doesn't really make sense in my opinion. She could use a little bit of work. So for that reason, I'm gonna put Viessa on the C tier. Next up, we have Jayber. Jayber, I think he's gonna be pretty strong on the late game. All his toolkit made sense. He has an assault turret, which is a DPS turret. He has a medical turret, which heals on an AoE. He has a multi-purpose gun, which upgrades the turrets or heals them. And he has Reactivate, which is pretty much a recall and explodes the active turrets. I feel like Jayber's toolkit makes sense for void intercepts or for the special operations, because you're gonna be pretty much stationary on designated areas. So as you're moving, you just put your assault turret and your medical turret, you upgrade them, and you're good, right? They should be doing a lot of damage. What I don't know is if Jayber's turrets, they're gonna inherit his damage, because on the final test, I thought that the turrets were pretty weak, honestly. Medical turret didn't feel like it was healing you, and the assault turret, it was shooting pretty slow and not doing a lot of damage, right? So I feel like maybe on the late game, he's gonna pop off, but on the early game, not really that good. So since we're rating the Descendants for the final test, I'm gonna put Jayber on the low D. Okay, next up we have Ajax. Ajax, I think he's gonna pop off on the full release. All his abilities make sense for him to be a tank. He has an Orbit Barrier, which is a wall where your bullets can shoot through, but the enemy's bullets cannot shoot through. He has a Void Walk, which is a push ability or an escape. He has Expulsion, which is a get the hell away from me ability. And he has a Hypercube, which is a dome-like ability where you can shoot from inside out, but the enemies cannot shoot you outside to inside the cube. I feel like Ajax, he's gonna be a must on endgame content. I feel like you're gonna need him on every single Void Intercept on hard difficulty. But for the final test, I didn't see a lot of use for him, honestly. The content was really easy. The Void Intercepts, maybe the against the Beauty Queen or whatever it's called, Void Intercept, you could see use for Ajax, because she has a big eye on the air. Didn't really try him if you could shoot through the bubble to shoot the eye. But that's pretty much it. I don't see another use for Ajax on the final test. So for the final test, I'm gonna rate Ajax on the low C. Next up we have Blair. Blair, I think he's like the all-rounder for the first Descendant. He has a Blaze Up, which he shoots a pool of flame on the ground, and he can buff up if he's standing on it, or he also burns enemies that touch it. He has Extinguish, which recalls the pulse of flame. He also buffs up. Burn Taste, it's a flamethrower, pretty straightforward. And Deadly Cuisine, it's a meteorite for single target damage, pretty strong. So I feel like Blair can do a little bit of everything, but he's not especially strong for single target damage, or he's not especially strong for AoE damage. He's probably gonna be good for leveling up but I don't see him being like a S tier on the late game. You're gonna be better grabbing somebody else. So for that reason, for the final test, I'm gonna raid Blair on the B tier. Our next Descendant is Gley, my personal favorite. I think Gley, she's gonna be the strongest character in the first Descendant, and the reason is because all her abilities increase her damage, and she ends up being super strong. Frenzied, if you have it active, you're gonna increase your DPS. If you have it inactive, you're gonna increase your life recovery. Life Siphon, similar to Frenzied. If you have Frenzied active, you're gonna increase your DPS. If you have it Frenzied inactive, you're gonna recover more health. Same thing for increased sensory. With Frenzied active, you're gonna increase your DPS. With Frenzied inactive, you're gonna increase your health recovery. And Massacre, same thing. With Frenzied active, you're gonna make more damage, and without it active, you're gonna recover faster. So everything on her toolkit makes her stronger. She has a mechanic that she needs to pick up blood orbs or whatever they are to activate some of her abilities. But I don't see it being an issue because for single target damage, even if you're not using Life Siphon or Increased Sensory or Massacre, just by having Frenzied active, and you're gonna increase your damage and you're gonna be way stronger. And against AoE damage, with Life Siphon, Increased Sensory, and Massacre, she's just gonna be deleting everything. She's so strong in my opinion. I feel like she's gonna be the strongest character in full release, and she's probably the strongest on the final test. So for that reason, I'm gonna put Gley on the very top of the S tier. Okay, next up we have Valby. I think Valby, she's gonna be one of the best support characters in the game, simply because most of her abilities, they're gonna afflict the enemies with Laundry. Laundry makes them more susceptible to electrical damage. Bubble Bullet, it's gonna inflict Laundry. Plop Plop, also whenever you pop off, you're gonna inflict Laundry. Cleanup, which is your dash. When you dash through them, or when they're touching your pool of water, they're gonna have Laundry, and the Laundry bomb will, besides also afflicting them with Laundry, you're also gonna disable them. They're gonna start floating in the air, which is pretty good in my opinion. So for content like strikes or maybe even special operations, I feel like she's gonna be a no-brainer. So for that reason, I'm gonna put Valby on the A tier. Lastly, we have Kyle. Kyle, in my opinion, is the weakest character in the first Descendant. He has a dash. Well, he has 3 charges of a dash, which pretty straightforward. He dashes towards an enemy and hits them. Very strong for single target. He pretty much one-shots enemies. I don't know about using this for void intercepts, but for ad clearing, I don't even think it's that good, because why would you wanna dash towards your enemies and expose yourself? Magnetic Bulwark, it's a shield ability, kind of like Ajax's, but you can't shoot through it, but you can move with it, which is a positive side. Magnetism Spurt, kind of like a shock ability. You charge it and you end up exploding and damaging on an AoE to the enemies nearby. And Superconductivity Thrusters. This is probably the best ability that Kyle has on his toolkit. Super strong, extremely strong, I would say. His best ability, hands down. But also, kind of like with Repulsion Dash, you end up in front of the enemy's face, and if you didn't kill them, you're the one that ends up dead, right? So, very strong ability, but very risky. I would never use Kyle on void intercepts. I would always use Ajax over him. And for strikes, I don't think I would be using Kyle either. I wouldn't be using Ajax either. For special operations, I wouldn't be using Kyle. I feel like I would use anybody else instead of Kyle. Even for void intercepts with the Superconductivity Thrusters, even if you're doing a lot of damage with that ability, you use it and you're dead. Like the boss is gonna one-shot you, right? Like there's no point in using that ability. So for that reason, I'm gonna put Kyle on the low D. Alright everyone, that's my tier list for the final test for the first Descendant. Let me know if you agree or disagree. For the S tier we have Gley and Bunny. super strong characters, especially Gley. Bunny is super strong as well, but she's more fun than everything, and I feel that she's gonna end up falling off at some point. Then for the A tier, we have Freyna, Lepic, and Valby, all pretty strong. For the B tier, we have Blair, our all-rounder. C tier, we have Viessa and Ajax. And D tier, we have Sharon, Jayber, and Kyle. Pretty bad characters in my opinion. I feel like they need a little bit of help. Well, Jayber, I feel like he's gonna be pretty strong on the late game, on the full release, but on the final test, he wasn't really that good, right? So yeah, that's pretty much all for this video, guys. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to see more videos for the first Descendant, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.